So we're back here today. It's about 45 degrees out. So the bees are not flying, which is probably a good thing. I'm going to put some sugar on, and when they're a little bit more clustered, that's a little easier to do. What I really want to talk about is the fall lack of brood. Inspired to do this from what I saw on another bee channel, that there's a lot of beekeepers out there that get very worried if they go into a hive in the fall and they don't see any brood or any sign of the queen. Well, as I covered in a previous video, see me going through the hives, that isn't necessarily a bad thing. The queen naturally cuts way back in the fall and may stop laying whatsoever. That's why the fall is a good time to treat for varroa mites, because most of the cappings are open. So what I look for in the fall when I'm doing an inspection is how the bees are acting. Are they calm? Are they excitable? Are they walking about in an organized fashion, or are they scampering about and freaking out? Scampering about and freaking out may be genetic, or it may be a sign that there really isn't a queen in there. But if they're a little organized and they're walking around and they're calm, then there's probably a queen in there, even if you don't find brood. One of the other things you can look for is very cleaned out cells, like they're being prepped for an egg to be dropped in them. They'll still do that even late in the fall. Also, if there's any pollen source out there and they're bringing in pollen, that's a good indicator that they know that there's a queen in there, and they're putting pollen away for her to, for them to feed the larvae once they hatch. So there's a number of things you can look for besides brood, and brood should not be the thing that tells you, yeah, you have a queen or you don't have a queen, or, oh, I don't see any brood, I'm panicking, where can I get a queen this late in the season? No, if the population of the hive is good and they're calm, and you see cleaned out cells, and they're walking about like they know what they're doing, they probably do know what they're doing, and you should just kind of let them be. As for the bees, the best thing that we can do during the winter is just to make sure that they are well fed with sugar block. And keep that sugar supply solid. The nice advantage of the burlap boxes is we can peek in without really opening up the hive and see how the sugar block supply is doing. These girls are not clustered, but I'll show you a hive that is clustered. This is one of Ed's hives. It's a smaller hive, but they are downstairs. They have not woken up for the day. So you might open up the hive and say, where are the bees? Well, they're in there. If you were to tap on the box, which I don't recommend, you'd wake a few up and they'd buzz around a bit. But, like us, I think they prefer a little bit of peace and quiet. So you might say, how can I tell if I have a dead out hive? If they're quiet, they're not up on the screen, et cetera, et cetera. Well, one thing you can do is when you take the lid off, you'll feel some warmth coming up. If your burlap or your top cover is just frozen and you feel no warmth in the hive and you don't hear anything when you stick your head in the hive, then you might have a problem. But I had a hive maybe 2 years ago that I was absolutely sure was a dead out. And, to the point where I started disassembling the hive. I'll have to, put the video or link to the video. It was one of the early videos. And so I took the top off. I took the upper super off, nothing. As I went to the second super, whoops, big pile of bees. They just were very, very quiet, and they were very tightly clustered, not producing too much heat. So when in doubt, assume that there might be life in there. Right now, this season, we have, a dozen hives going into winter. And chances are, I'm going to be showing you a video on a dead out at some point. Hoping not. Going to keep them fed, going to keep them insulated, but beekeeping has that as part of it. There's not too much you can do. You do your best possible for the hives, and you hope for the best going through the winter, but it's really up to them and to the condition of the queen and the size of the cluster. All we can do is make sure that, you know, they're not exposed to the elements, and we try to keep mice out, and we try to keep them well fed. But this late in the year, it's not like you could even introduce a queen. You certainly couldn't get them to raise a queen because they're not going to be able to take a mating flight. So they're kind of on their own in the winter, other than, you know, just an occasional peek. So I'm gonna brick these girls back up and head in for the day. But as usual, remember to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out, you know. You gotta do beekeeping for the love of it. You're not gonna get rich harvesting honey. You know, a commercial beekeeper will harvest the honey, they'll rent the hives out for pollination, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, that generally is someone who has maybe, you know, 200 to 1,000 hives. 12 hives isn't going to interest any farmers. So you got to do it for the love of it. And seeing that people appreciate the channel and like and subscribe is what keeps me going. See you next week.